Yes, there are a lot of homeless people everywhere. Is homeless the problem in Japan? I saw one homeless person in Japan. One. There is a total, and that was one of 3,800. Japan's population is 130 million. And there are only 3,800 homeless people total in the entire island. How'd you know he was homeless? I mean, it was clear. He was panhandling. They have homeless people in Japan. They're just way better at pushing them out of sight. Yeah, I think you mean like, I gave you the official number, first of all. Okay. Homelessness by country in 2023, Japan isn't even on the list. I mean, it might be. Wait, really? It's not on the list? What the fuck? How? What is happening here? Yeah, here. Like, I know Hong Kong has more homeless people than this. I think this number is like very low for Hong Kong. But yeah, Japan, here it is, 3,992. A little bit over Norway. What? Urgent. Angelia, 45, ate 4 bites of a Mr. Beast Feastable chocolate bar. 3 days later, she's paralyzed from the legs down and has severe convulsions and seizures. She can no longer clean, cook, drive a car. Says, I'm a prisoner in my own home. Stop. Yeah, the Japanese homeless population is literally, like, people will say, oh, dude, they're invisible. Or, oh, dude, they get pushed out of sight. Oh, dude, this. Oh, dude, that. Like, motherfucker, you're out of your mind. No matter how much they underreport homelessness, or no matter how much they have like homeless people live in like manga cafes and shit. Okay? It's literally wrong. If you live there, you'd know. It's a lot of hostile architecture and pushing them into homeless parks. You will never convince me that Japanese hostile architecture is anywhere near the United States. It's just hard. I'm not going to believe that. Okay? Like, you're crazy. You're actually crazy. I've lived there for years. It's literally long. If those official numbers are the same as official numbers for sexual assault underreported. Like, I saw it. We have literal fucking spikes under bridges, spikes on benches, spikes everywhere. Like, America, the homelessness is such a big problem in like major cities in the United States that they routinely fuck over like non-homeless commuters. You know what I mean? On top of everything else. Like, yeah, even if it's underreported by 200%, it would still be nothing. Like, in order for that number to reach California levels, it would have to be 10x. And it still would not reach California's levels. And California has way less people than Japan still. Like, it would need to be like 20 times. Do you understand? Do you understand how fucking low this number is in comparison to the population? 130 million, almost 4,000 homeless people. That's insane. Simping for an entire country. Like, and one major aspect of homelessness being, one major aspect of Japanese society is that there's fucking public toilets, public bathrooms, public amenities that homeless people can use to, at the very least, like, have some level of dignity. I'm sorry. I'm sure that there's still massive homelessness going on, or not massive, but yeah, it's low. But these stats are underreported. It's a known thing. I'm sure it is. I'm sure it is. It's like the Japanese conviction rate. You know what I mean? It's 99%. Why? Well, because they're fucking psychotic. I know. I know how that works. Okay, I get it. Like they literally will hold you constitutionally for 28 days involuntarily if they want to. Just that's it. Unless you just immediately plead guilty, in which case you will be in the prison system for way, 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 way shorter periods of time. Okay? Yeah. Bro, they literally they added a jury system like I think 10 years ago, okay? When the fuck did Japan actually have start having juries? They added juries to their criminal justice system not that long ago. They used to have juries, and then in 1949 or 1940, yeah, the American Constitution rewrote everything. They stopped using juries, and then they created a new quasi-jury system that was passed into law in May 2004 and was implemented in 2009. And they're still not juries, but considered lay judges that work in side by side with professional judges. Yeah. 2009 is when they fucking implemented some semblance of a jury system. Uh, like people try to patch up and try to make sense of Japan, which I understand why you do this because it's like literally impossible to comprehend because it kind of does it kind of is like the one unique circumstance that violates the rule but doesn't completely break it because it's not supposed to work but it still does, right? And then you say things like, sadly, I think the number is low because it's not super uncommon for people financially struggling to commit self-unaliving in order to avoid being homeless. You just said that, but the Japanese suicide rate is significant. The Japanese suicide rate is lower than the American suicide rate. Like that's just a like I guess a cultural stereotype that's stuck that you are operating with. So you're basically using that as a possible possible explanation. Look, less people? No, I said suicide rate per capita, not totality. Of course, the United States is a larger country. I'm talking about. I'm Japanese and I didn't even know that. Yeah, people think that um, Japan has the highest suicide rate. I mean, I've seen numbers that show higher. But I thought that the American suicide rate was higher. And then I actually was talking to Sid, Garnt's wife, who said, no, it's actually higher in Japan. But no, it's not. South Korea has a much higher suicide rate. Both the USA and Japan rates of suicide are not good, though, Hasan. No, they're not. But again, I'm comparing. I am comparing the total number of deaths from suicide was 31,000 in Japan and 29,000 in the United States. Wait, what? No, that's not correct. The Japanese suicide rate is lower than the United States of America's suicide rate. I thought that was or wait, was that totality, bro? Did you think he was happy about it? What do you mean? Yeah, ghost towns are really interesting as well. Japan has more suicide rate. The age range is 35 and up. America has a higher suicide rate, 34 and below. Not according to this. Wait, let's take a look at this. Wait, what did we look at? Maybe I'm mistaking totality. But we were, yeah, suicide rate by country. This was where we, yeah. Look. The total suicide rate. Okay. This is like less, smaller number, is better, obviously. Yeah, Japan is 15.3. The United States is 16.1. South Korea, on the other hand, is like, where the fuck is it? It's like at the top somewhere. I don't know where it is. Oh, I was going above. Instead of scrolling down. Oops. South Korea is at 28.6. One of the worst on the planet. Anyway, on average, U.S. workers work more hours than Japanese workers too, but it's still assumed that it's the other way around. These ideas stick. Yeah. American workers work more hours than Japanese workers do. American workers or Americans commit suicide at a higher rate than the Japanese do. And if you ask Americans, they still turn around and fucking act like, oh no, the Japanese are working really hard and killing themselves, which is true. They are. They are working really hard and they are killing themselves. That's true. But America is worse, which is something that you got to remember always. It's fucking insane. American workers do work more hours, but Japanese workers are forced to do social time outside of work that don't always count. I mean, regardless. Suicides in the U.S. are disproportionately military vets, and they don't have that as severely in Japan. Yeah, I mean, who cares? What are you talking about? Oh, so it's okay? Like what? Yeah, you're talking about America's. Okay. Here, let me read back the statistic that you just tried to rationalize here. What you just said was that the largest hiring body on the planet, okay, the largest hiring body on the planet, because remember, being a vet means you are working for the Defense Department, the DOD, which happens to be the largest hiring body in the United States of America and also the largest hiring body on the planet. It is a job. Okay, so you're saying America's number one hiring body and the world's largest company also happens to have the most disproportionate rate of suicide. That doesn't change the dynamic at all. It also kills the most too, but like, you know, that's not even what we're talking about. I don't think there's any malicious intent behind that misconception. Just that in the 90s, it was the case that Japan had a higher suicide rate and worked more hours. America just regressed heavily in the last 3 decades. Yeah, no, I know that I don't think people are saying this maliciously. No, there was a Japanese person who didn't even fucking know that in the chat. Like, this is not a thing that people know. People just have that preconception stuck with them and not and don't recognize that, like, our shit is really bad. Like, really, really, really bad. America is really just gross and fucking awful to live in if you are someone who is barely making ends meet. It's a playground if you're rich. It is awesome. It's great. You have everything. You now can even like hire slaves basically in the form of like Uber contracted workers. Okay, so that every mid-level marketing manager can feel the life of serfdom and forget that they themselves are also getting fucking grinded to the core. You're fighting against the American exceptionalism mentality. It's almost impossible to get Americans to realize how fucked they really are. Yeah, it's crazy. People get also defensive when you talk about this sort of stuff, when you're supposed to actually mention that, like, you know, this is fixable. Yeah. By the way, South Korea's suicide rates skyrocketing. Kind of along the same lines of like South Korea starting to lap Japan in industry. In electronics, Japanese suicide rates declining dramatically, dropping off. Or that's not Japan, that's Russia, sorry. Japanese suicide rates also declining since the 90s. Big boost up in the 90s, goes down a lot, goes back up, and is like slowly declining again. Meanwhile, South Korean suicide rates are growing crazy. This is, of course, dissolution of the USSR. This is not, you can't even touch this. Again, one common factor in at least like some of the higher performers here with respect to suicide is, dare I say it, the United States of America's involvement in your country. This dissolution of the USSR, boom, skyrockets like insane. Hyper-capitalist dystopia where a bunch of oligarchs are, a bunch of oligarchs control everything. People are literally prostituting themselves as fucking children to survive. Okay, that's what you got post-USSR. Insane. South Korea and Japan also touched by America in dramatic ways. Yes, but 15% of 126 million versus 16% of 330 million makes an impact more. Wait, what? No, dude. No, this is not. No, you misunderstood. It's not 15%, dog. That's a percentage. That's not percentage. It's per capita. Per population. Okay, guys, don't make fun of him. He just doesn't understand. He doesn't understand how statistics works. And that's fine. Like, he doesn't understand it. And many of you are like this, or many of you were like this, and it doesn't matter. You learned, and, you know, we shouldn't make fun of people like that. It's the same amount of population per capita, so yes, there are still more people committing suicides, but the rates are comparable. Yes, the rates are comparable, but the United States still has one person more per capita. Okay, but let's be fair. The U.S. didn't collapse. The USSR, Russian people revolted against the regime. Then it collapsed. What? What? I don't know what to say about that, dude. Also, the huge spike in Japanese suicides in the mid-90s was because at the start of the lost decades, Japan's economy stagnated and to this day has not recovered to its peak in the early 90s. Societal economic troubles are heavily correlated with suicide, also seen with the collapse of the USSR. Yeah.